I want a Labour government to do and to have one thing only, and that is confidence. What we've always lacked is confidence, an understanding that we have power, and we must exercise that power. Part of our problem has always been we've not understood the power that we have. And let me tell you what power we have. The whole of the banking system depends on public institutions. The banks today would be bankrupt, and in fact I think some of them still are insolvent, if it were not for, first of all, government guarantees backed by taxpayers, you and me, on the one hand, guarantees for deposits in banks. Secondly, the central bank, which is providing them with something called QE, which is easy, cheap money, right? Cheaper than you and I are able to get hold of, at 0.25%. And the central bank, the Bank of England, is a nationalised bank, nationalised by the Labour government in 1945 because it messed up in the crisis of the 20s and the 30s, right? So this is our bank, and this bank is backed by us, taxpayers. The Bank of England would have no authority, sterling would have no value if it were not for the fact that it's backed by 31 million taxpayers who pay their taxes and who work within a tax collection system, unlike Google, Facebook, Amazon, and that crap, right? 31 million of us pay our taxpayers. That's what gives the currency value. And these guys could not be messing around with the currency if it did not have that value and if it did not have us behind that value, right? So we need to understand our power. If we take away the central bank, if we say to the banks, thou shalt not have access to the Bank of England, you will not get access to QE, and you are not allowed to get cheap money from the Bank of England anymore. If we were to say that, they would be terrified, right? And I want to tell you that it doesn't just confine itself to the traditional banks, because the big four traditional banks are small beer in the global economy as things stand at the moment. The big bad guys are out there in the stratosphere beyond the sight of regulatory democracy. But they too depend on the publicly financed and publicly backed institution that is our central bank. Why? Because the most valuable collateral for BlackRock and all the big asset management funds, the most valuable collateral for them, and let me just explain first of all why they need collateral. Because out there in the stratosphere, they're creating money, right? And the way money is created, as you know, is when someone goes to the bank and wants £300,000 to buy a house, they offer up collateral. They say, I've got an existing property or whatever. I've got behind me an asset, a collateral, as guarantee if you give me the loan to buy a new house, right? So this collateral thing is really important. And when you offer up collateral, sign a contract and agree to take a loan, the bank then enters a number into a computer and transfers it to your account out of thin air, right? So we have created new money every time we apply for a loan. Now what's happening out in the stratosphere is that big institutions like BlackRock, for example, are creating money themselves in a different way. And for that to happen, they need collateral. And what is the most valuable collateral for an institution like BlackRock, which manages billions of dollars every year, and which has to hire George Osborne at £600,000 a year to defend their interests? What's the most valuable collateral they could have? Well, it's British sovereign debt. It's American sovereign debt, right? It's our debt, it's our bonds, it's the bonds that have been issued by governments, which are valuable. Why are they valuable? Because we're not going to default on those bonds, because it's backed by 31 million taxpayers, right? They use that collateral, they get that collateral from our bank, the Nationalised Central Bank, and they use that for creating new money. Now, that's all very complicated, and you need a PhD to understand shadow banking and all of that stuff going on there. But the thing that I want you to understand, and I want Labour to understand, is that we have power. We can withdraw that power. We can withdraw the power for them to have access to the Bank of England. We can deny them the right for cheap money, and we can say, or we can say, look, we don't want the banks to fail. We don't want to find another financial crisis. We don't want ATMs to close down. So we will allow you access to the central bank, but these are the terms and conditions. Thou shalt lend. For me, one of the most distressing things about Alistair Darling's actions after the crisis was that he bailed out the banks, and I think that that was the right thing to do. We were on the brink of people not being able to draw money out of the hole in the wall, and that would have created a social, political, and economic catastrophe, right? So it was right to bail out. What was wrong was there were no terms and conditions. You were given all this stuff and just told to carry on as before. And it's okay for your shareholders to do well out of this. And no, we don't want to pretend the state is running this bank. We're not pretending that the state is holding up RBS for 10 years. The biggest bailout in history, the biggest corporate bailout. Let's pretend it hasn't happened. And let's allow the private shareholders to carry on creaming off the gains from those institutions. So this is what I want a Labour government to do. I want it to have confidence. I want it to understand that it has power relative to big capital finance, right? And that we can set terms and conditions and we can transform the world. Thank you very much.